and you would be right here next to me. And if I had the secret, you know I'm lonely. So why don't you come over my place and put a smile on mine? If you leave in the club, girl.
Okay, crew's just incredible. Hold up,
I be banging all on that beat. 808, she got the bass when her booty shake. She got her friends with her, and they a sight to see. All that butt, don't let it go to waste.
I just broke it to her. I said, hey, I want to marry you, but I want to be real with you. I want to be honest with you and tell you, everything. This is what it is. Before we were together, me and this other girl did have sex. My trust totally was lost with her. She didn't care. Like, she just didn't trust me after that. From there, it just went downhill. It would be fights, it would be verbal fights, physical fights as well. We would fight each other, she would hit me, I would hit her. Like, I don't like that, I don't like you slapping me. If I go on stage, I got a scratch on my face, and I gotta explain it like, oh, no, I fell, or like, if you got a scar or whatever, or a bruise, you gotta put makeup on it. I feel like shit, I'm not ever trying to put my hands on any female.
I went from being on top of the world, #1 songs, being kind of like America's sweetheart, to being Public Enemy #1. Words from Christopher Maurice Brown, born May 5th, 1989. That quote best sums up the story of Chris Brown and puts in perspective the reason we're even here taking part in a story like this today. What he forgot to add at the time is that he'd actually bounced back and became somewhat of the love superstar he once was again. But it couldn't help but to feel some things are still not the same. The perfect musical definition of stunted growth in that it doesn't always mean you never get back up and become great again. Just that at some point you were knocked off that path for whatever reason. Reasons that could hopefully help the next great superstar avoid. At around just 15, 16 years old, it seemed the world knew about Chris Brown, no matter your age, especially if you were a teenager at the time. Not every day a superstar is born, no matter the walk of life. To become a superstar in music, specifically R&B, is even more rare and few and far between. Chris Brown wasn't just any superstar though. He had the talent, youth, look, personality, and opportunity to become an icon, or even better, a legend. It's difficult to tell any Chris Brown story without mentioning the greatest musical superstar, icon, and legend of all time, Michael Jackson, because unlike no one before him, Chris could have been just as legendary had these things not happened. Let's talk briefly about the growth stunts in Chris Brown's career that, although he's still one of the coldest in the game, singing, dancing, designing, and anything artistic in general, believe it or not, he could have been even better. Salute to My Poetic Life on IG for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Ash, get it, man. No, Chris Brown is not a blood gang member from Compton, California. Instead, he's a good kid from a small country town called Tappahannock, Virginia, that came up dancing and winning talent shows in his high school, excelling in art classes and pretty much anything he took part in, including sports like football and basketball. Because of his mom's love for music and Michael Jackson, he grew up constantly listening, hearing, and watching Michael, which led to him trying to perfect his imitation of him while adding his own sauce. His family was very close at the time, and on one destined day, a talent scout walked into a gas station where Chris's father worked, and in conversation about his reason for passing through the small town, stated that he was on the road, looking for new artists, and this gas station stop was just one of many along his journey. Chris's father responds by saying, "Hey, you know my son sings, right?" Those words set off a domino effect that led to Brown's music landing in the hands of well-renowned A&R, songwriter, producer, and legend in his own right, L.A. Reid, who immediately knew Chris Brown was a star and rushed to court him and possibly sign him to Def Jam. In the next few months, his demo continued being shopped across the industry, and everyone wanted the obvious star talent. He eventually chose the best fit for him, as he says, in Jive Records, who worked and had success with child stars before in Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears. Brown got to work, and not long after, his debut self-titled album dropped November 2005 and took over the music world. His song Run It is still, to me, one of the best, most well put together debut songs in the last 20 years. Even down to having the perfect rap feature in Joel Santana, who was an upcoming star in his own right that perfectly matched Chris Brown's essence as a slightly more mature rap version of him. The album eventually went 3 times platinum, and every song released as a single instantly became hits as the world loved Chris Brown. Stunt number 1, The Biggest No-No.
I was wrong for what I did, and I would definitely say that it's not something that I look past or look over. And like I said, I'm really sorry for what went down and what happened.
Just 4 years into his meteoric rise to fame, Brown had created great expectations for himself and was living up to them with insane future projections until that fateful 2009 night right before the Grammys, when he committed the biggest no-no for a male, especially one as bright a star as he was becoming, where a reason to bring you down was being preyed on by a select few. On the way to the show, he and girlfriend of a year and fellow rising star and chart topper in her own right, Rihanna, got into a disagreement or argument of some sort that led to him putting hands on her, to the point blood was left all over her, his vehicle, and her face from him hitting her repeatedly as he drove. Immediately, the infamous photos of her battered face were released to the public as Chris Brown's career was about to see its first growth stunt. He was booked and pled guilty to felony assault, to which he received 5 years probation, community service, and forced to take a domestic violence class. That was the light part. Even worse came following, as the music industry all but washed their hands with Chris Brown, frustrated something like this could happen to a woman, period, but to one like Rihanna, who they all loved. This was almost career-ending for Chris, as he now became the most hated artist in history in that moment. He went on an apology tour all across America, while Rihanna went on her own battered victim tour, where everyone rightfully took her side and turned their nose at Brown for his mistakes. For this reason, he'd be denied entry into the UK, where he planned a tour, as well as endorsements separating themselves from him, which led to, as he said, the darkest point in his life. This ordeal would haunt the next 6 years for Brown and change the course of his projection as the next Michael Jackson forever. Had this not happened, he was well on his way to being that or even bigger. Stunt number 2, Thuggin'. Another stunt in Chris Brown's growth that took him off the path of the icon he could have been was this thug life he adopted not too long after the incident and open wounds of the Rihanna situation had closed. You'd think that situation would have humbled Brown and helped him understand the gravity of what he could have lost because of violence, immaturity, and a hot temper that seemed he was unable to control. One he'd be evaluated and diagnosed as being bipolar for, which could have been the reason he continued down the road of bad boy, and negative, sometimes violent incidents continued to follow him. Shockingly, he began to claim the Blood Gang set of LA, tattooing his body and getting into altercations in the streets and with other recording artists like Frank Ocean and Drake, to which some would even turn physical. His behavior began to spiral out of control, and he'd violate probation numerous times, which would at points lead to him serving jail time and more probation hours added. Then there was another public relationship with former girlfriend Karuchi, who eventually filed a restraining order against Brown for threatening her with violence as she feared for her safety. Brown's charges of violence would begin to rack up at Bobby Brown levels at points in his career, as it seemed he embraced the bad boy image the media placed on him, or maybe he was in fact bipolar and in desperate need of mental health. Whatever it was, it continued to stunt the perception of Chris Brown, even though musically his songs and albums continue to do well. That's a testament to how talented this guy was, but going 1 time platinum, 2 times platinum is well below the levels of a talent like Chris Brown should have reached. He just couldn't stay out of his own way at times, and it cost him. Stunt number 3, drug use. The third and final stunt that more recently and potentially at the moment that's holding Chris Brown back is the obvious use of drugs present in his life that seem to have taken a hold of the Chris Brown we once knew and is transforming him into a totally different person. Musically, he's still amazing, and he'll always be that. Heartbreak on a Full Moon is my favorite Chris Brown album of all time, and the song Heartbreak on a Full Moon is one I played for my son the first time I met him that he seemed to agree was just the most well-rounded set of sounds ever. I love Chris Brown musically and artistically, but I can't help but notice that outside of that, he's a different person. And I get it, everyone changes and evolves into different people, but something isn't right. Even his appearance looks as if he's always down or dealing with something he just can't explain. He's been seen allegedly using in public, and reports and rumors have been swirling that what he's using is a lot deeper than just weed. Rumors of sipping lean and even sniffing cocaine are the most popular, all while not taking his medication for his 2014 bipolar diagnosis. Things got so bad that he would attend rehab twice, being kicked out both times. His alleged drug use is well documented, and for whatever reason, he seems to need them to cope, which is turning him into a different person. Career-wise, like mentioned, he's still a tremendous singer and dancer, and still is one of the best artists in the game right now. And this is speaking of the lowest version of Chris Brown. Imagine what he could have been without everything above happening. Still, mad love and appreciation for Chris Brown, but for these reasons, his growth was stunning. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.